So if you've been with me since the creation of this YouTube channel, and even before then you would know that I used to do movie reviews, and I mean tons of them. But I have since hung up the movie reviewer hat in place of a more encompassing video essayist, videographer, poetry, and all kinds of other creative hat, which I personally don't think is a bad toss-up, but I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I do kind of miss it. And this isn't to say that I wasn't ever going to do another movie review ever again, but I just didn't think that it would be this soon. So the new Space Jam movie, A New Legacy, was recently released on HBO Max and in theaters. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say this, okay? Yes, like a lot of you all, I grew up on the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan. And if you didn't already know, I'm pretty much named after the man, for crying out loud. But please also know that I take my reviews very seriously. And I really did try to be as objective as I possibly could be with this movie. And where I am not, it is noted. But also know that facts are facts are facts are facts. And while I'm here, I don't want to hear the, oh, it's a kid's movie, or, oh, Jordan, you're being too hard on the movie, you're doing too much. Stop, okay? Just
stop it.
Save your excuses. You saw the title, you clicked on the video, you knew what you were getting yourself into. So the new Space Jam movie, starring the King
LeBron James,
was really that bad. And so honestly, just going ahead and getting right into it, ripping the band-aid clean off, LeBron James is a horrible actor. I know that the man is a great basketball player, and through social media, he seems like a cool dad.
It's Taco Tuesday!
But he is a horrible actor. Say what you want about Jordan, okay? But at least the man had some kind of acting chops. LeBron James has zero. And of course, going into this movie, I wasn't expecting an Oscar-worthy performance from LeBron James. But I mean, goodness gracious, it was painful. So painful.
Oh, you mad, bro?
And the only reason as to why I'm harping on it as much as I am is because I know that the only reason as to why he got this role is because he is LeBron James. And this is something that upsets me because I know that, like a lot of other things with this movie, people are going to use that as another excuse as to why the movie is as bad as it is. When for me, there are no excuses. Like, there were times where when I would watch him on the screen and he's supposed to be acting, where it didn't even feel like he was acting in the same room as whomever he's supposed to be acting with. But the thing is, there were some other people in the movie that I felt the same way about as well. Don Cheadle included. Some of his acting in this movie was just... And of course, at the end of the day, I know that it all isn't their fault. Like, I know that the camera positions and the editing didn't help, which is something that I will get into later. But I also know that another large part of the problem was the writing. The writing in this movie was also that bad and downright corny.
Welcome, King James. I am the king of this domain.
This movie felt like, and excuse my language, a LeBron James jerk-off for a good first part of the movie. What with all the, you could be a once-in-a-generation talent, or you know I got full court vision, or he's not just an athlete, he's king. Like, okay, we get it, you're good at basketball, but what else is there to your character and this movie? And then we get Warner Brothers. So this movie, if you didn't already know, is essentially about LeBron James having to battle this rogue personified algorithm played by Don Cheadle, with the help of the Looney Tunes, of course.
what's up, Doc?
In an attempt to save his son, himself, and a number of other people who were dragged to the simulated reality by this rogue algorithm, all because he wants LeBron to create a viral sensation because capitalism. And because it's all about capitalism, hence it being a reboot, and because reboots just seem to throw originality out of the window like it's not its entire reason for existence, we get movies like this, where then a good chunk is dedicated to pointing out all of the different intellectual properties that the studio that makes the movie owns. So as much as this was a LeBron James jerk-off, this was a huge Warner Brothers one as well. This movie was basically Ready Player One, but with basketball. Like, when I tell you for a good part of an hour, that's pretty much all that you get from the movie, believe me. And, you know, if that's something that sounds entertaining to you, then hey, different strokes for different folks. But it wasn't for me. For example, speaking personally, I think that it would have been nice to perhaps see the inner workings and dynamics of the Looney Tunes squad after being apart for so long, or just being together, period. Or the diving into the idea of there being conflict between the Toons because Bugs stayed true to Toon World and they didn't. Or even more commentary on the idea that CGI is somehow more valuable than hand-drawn animation, because I've also seen people grasping at that idea.
I look expensive!
Or even just more moments of LeBron with his family, since family seems to be everything to his character, even though we're only really shown this through dialogue and plot devices.
Family's everything.
You got that right.
But no. Instead, we get a movie that rests on the fact that because it's so aware of its place within the Warner Brothers universe, that even though people know that it's a grab at our nostalgia, it ends up being a cheap one, to say the least. And if all else fails, the movie knows that they still have the kid angle to fall back on.
Well, at least we're good.
Now, another thing about the storyline and plot that I didn't like, and this is on a more subjective note, was the plot itself. I don't know about y'all, but for me, the idea of some humanoid version of a digitized algorithm is just weird to me. And then on top of that, with it being the main villain and its motive being to essentially go viral, is also weird and just very corny to me. And yes, of course, I know that that really says more about my feelings on our society as a whole rather than the movie itself, but, you know, feelings are feelings. And anyway, getting back on a more objective note, the pacing and at times overall editing of the movie is also that bad. And when we open up the movie, we get thrown right into the ending of a conversation between LeBron and his mom, where she's wishing him luck before another one of his games that she can't attend. Then we see him sitting on the bleachers right before the basketball game with the Looney Tunes bag right at his feet, bouncing a ball through his legs. He then becomes engrossed in a video game. We're then thrown again into the end, but of this time, the basketball game that LeBron loses for his team. Then, his coach gives him a pep talk after the game and tells him to keep his head in the basketball game and out of the video games. And this all happens in less than 3 minutes.
Well, that happened.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that a backstory can't be set up in less than 3 minutes. However, in the case of this movie, those are all pretty big moments that get glossed over and fly by so quickly that if you blink, you'll miss it and find yourself in a LeBron James sports highlight.
He has got the complete package.
It's like they give you just enough to kind of set up the movie and show us that maybe LeBron will grow up valuing family because his mother could never support him in the way that he wanted. Or maybe he actually is a good basketball player. Or maybe he has developed an unhealthy aversion to video games because of that one random game where he missed the game winner, but we're never actually shown this. This movie suffers a lot from telling and not showing. Now, in regards to my points, with the mom flashback, I think had they perhaps just given a bit more time to developing that relationship dynamic to show that even though LeBron loves his mom, he still gets consistently let down by her. Or maybe in regards to the game, had we actually seen some clips that would then warrant the conversation between him and his coach, where he tells him that he can be the athlete of a generation, a conversation in which I also think needed a bit more time to be fleshed out to create more of a sense of drive and motivation within a young LeBron to push him to be the LeBron that we know today, that all would have made for a much better way of introducing us and getting us emotionally pulled and invested invested into the story. But instead, we get a rushed setup and this feeling of scenes not getting their proper time to build and breathe, which then gets permeated throughout the entire movie.
There's going to be so much going on in the movie from one scene to the next.
And because of this, I also couldn't help but to get the feeling that when they were nearing the ending of their editing sessions, that they just decided to speed up the entire movie for time reasons. The final movie was already almost pushing 2 hours, and unless that's how they shot the movie and wanted for it to have this quick feel, which I hope isn't the case because that's already a bad decision in and of itself, I really can't see any other reason for the kind of feel that I got from the movie. And it's a shame that most of that time was wasted on showing us material that we've already seen in other movies and shows, instead of building up the actual story at hand. Like, there were moments where I was ready to feel something. That scene after the big game with all the Looney Tunes being together, I was ready for some emotion. But no, that scene was just like all of the other scenes, not built up, rushed, and contrived. And of course I recognize how by not having any other context to the Looney Tunes and their stories outside of them being LeBron James recruits, how that then makes it pretty hard to then build up anything outside of that storyline. But still, if anything, it just adds more fuel to my point that they really did not care about the story itself.
I think the effects that we have throughout the film are going to be the greatest thing about the whole movie.
Now, when I do these reviews, even if there was nothing that I really liked about the movie per se and or I just tear it to shreds, I still try to find at least one redeeming quality about the movie. Now, it may not always be the case, but I do try. And surprisingly for this movie, it wasn't that hard. The last 20 to 25 minutes of the movie in the second half of the big basketball game, when the Looney Tunes and by extension LeBron himself were able to just be themselves, that's when I started having fun with the movie. I just wish that I had gotten more of that. And sure, you could say, well, that's the point of the movie, to get everyone to realize that it's okay to be yourself, and that's fine, but it shouldn't have taken an hour and 20 minutes to do so. Before this, when we see the Looney Tunes, they're either acting like someone else or rehashing scenes that we've seen them do before. In the second half of the movie, this is where we get more originality, more of a balancing of the old and the new without it having to be so self-aware. That is what the movie should have been. And so going ahead and ending this review, I know that I'm just one person, and what I'm saying is going to fall on deaf ears to the ones that need to hear it the most. But Warner Brothers, I promise you, the fact that you all own all of these different entertainment properties is not as amazing as you think it is. We don't care. We want new ones. And to anybody else that is looking to hire LeBron for an acting role, don't. Please, for the sake of all things that are holy and Meryl Streep, just let him stick to basketball.
That's all.